about worship that I really love is when the music preaches to me. You can kind of get the feeling like the music is like the warm-up. Wow. It's really the heart of the believer reaching out to God, singing love songs, poems. Okay, so began this series by saying I was not born with wisdom. My dad was born to fight, as King David did, and my mom was born to get her way, as Bathsheba did. That's amazing, but not for me. I was driven to wisdom out of desperation, and I just kind of moved forward from there. But I have noticed something strange under the sun, and it's this. Others who would be driven to wisdom are driven instead to anger, discouragement, and even pity because they assume that wisdom should just naturally show up on their doorstep as needed. And so they get all contorted and out of shape and out of sorts when it's not there for them, when it doesn't come naturally. When I don't know of any natural wisdom that can do us any good anyway. It's got to be supernatural wisdom. So, driven to it happened to me like this. I was given at a young age to running a kingdom that had been neglected. The support of my leaders and those who were around me is starting to fail. The people were giving up on me because they sensed that they weren't getting their way with what I wanted to do. I had this great mandate to build the temple, but I had no money to build it. I got the kingdom, but my brothers got off with King David's loot. And then, after all of that, I had enemies. You know how Israel sits on a map. We've always had enemies. And to the north, and to the south, and to the east. Yes, I did that right. To the east. I'd have enemies on the west if there were people in boats offshore or in some kind of island someplace. But we just didn't have anyone on the west, so I didn't have enemies. My priest and spiritual advisor, Zadok, said, King Solomon, we need to go to God. And I said, duh, you think? Right? No, he said, no, you're not listening. I don't mean go to God with your problems. I mean go to God, the rock that is higher than you. Oh man, Priest Zadok, he's always reading my mail. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Take all of my problems to God and say, here, solve this, fix this, so I can do all these things. Zadok was right. I needed to do something different than just take my problems to God. So we set it all up, went up onto the mountain, the holy mountain, before the altar that was built that the people had carried through the desert. And I just came to God, and I said, okay, God, I want your heart. I want your brain. I want to do whatever it is that I got to do. I want to do it your way. And God showed up. And then the cool stuff happened. Because in the midst of that, God said, I expected you to come to me with your problems for me to fix. Quite frankly, Solomon, I don't work that way. Because then you go off and live your life and you're all jammed up again. And I want a relationship with you. So as our servant Job said, Problems will befall a man like a spark flies up from heaven from the evening campfire. They'll always be there, because you'll always then need me, and I will always be God, and there will be no separation. Wow. I was blown away. And then God said, and now I want to give you money and power and honor and prestige and stuff. In fact, God was probably saying, I want to give you so much stuff it'll ruin you. And then you'll come back to me. Which is exactly what happened to me, but I'm ahead of my story. So I've got to save something next week. Here's the deal. Wisdom, then, is raising the elevation of your sight from facing your current problems to facing God. Saying, okay, you're ever present. You are the Almighty God. You are my Father. You're good even if I don't think so, and you love me even when I don't feel it. Go. Is that what you want? Is that what you want this morning? Or do we want what I refer to as our gumball God? I put my penny in it, through the slot, the gumball comes out, I walk down the street. It's a little bit sweet, you know. Do we want that wisdom? So take a look at your outline. If you've got your prayers on one side, just flip that over. Wisdom is not accidental, it is causal. The good things of God are not accidental. They are part of a cause and effect. Okay, we're going to talk a little more about that as we get into this, but something causes wisdom. Something allows us to be ready and swept up in the wisdom of God so that nothing else matters. Do you want that? Anyone can say amen or yeah dog, or whatever you get. Yeah, all the above. So the plan, so what I had to do here was, and there's a misread in your, I think we got it right on the overhead, I got it right in here, I misspelled some things. Nothing unusual. The plan, and then also I put what the King James, I love the word they used, so I put that word in here, next to it. The plans of the diligent lead or tend to profit as surely as haste leads or tends to poverty. As surely as diligent leads to profit, haste tends or leads to poverty. So let me talk about the word tend. It's a great word. You're going to get it when we talk about this, and you're going to ask yourself, well, why they? I don't know. Some of these good words we ought to just hang on. Right? Okay. Definition is twofold. The first is tend is an observation, right? He often is late. He does not tend to be punctual. You observe this. They're late all the time. They don't tend to get here on time. They make me late, and, well, we're not even going to go there till later on in the sermon. Okay? But that's the observation. The engagement is to care for or maintain. Like, I must tend to my garden because the summer weeds have taken over. I must tend to it. I must get out there, put on some gloves, pull up all those weeds, and get going. I must tend to it. Now here's the two-part context that you've got to understand. There's no amount of tending. This is really going to be important for later on. There's no amount of tending that can make wisdom happen. You can only put yourself in a position to receive it. But, you know those great tomatoes, they start to come off the vine about now, and you just slice those puppies, salt and pepper on them. Man, ooh, that is good stuff. Much different than those whatever they sell as tomatoes. I think they get them from Mars or something. They just, yeah. So the farmer has no idea that the farmer makes that tomato. The farmer just waters it, makes sure it gets fertilizer, there's no weeds, and then those tomatoes grow and they taste awesome. The farmer, the person, the Christian does not make wisdom. We get ourselves in a position by tending to get all the wisdom in buckets that God has for us. And here's the other piece. And I had this conversation with several people this week, which was really fun. And so I hope this works. The context of these verses is farming and ranching. But Solomon is not teaching about farming and ranching. Okay? So what's it got to do with the ox? Just go with me here. Understand that this is a metaphor. Solomon was very wise to take the things that we knew of in the world, that we had scratched our heads out. What's the wisdom of ox? There's nothing in the middle. I haven't even read that verse yet, so you know what I'm talking about. But you're going to in a minute, okay? It's warming you up. So here we are. This is not a FFA or a 4-H class, but in a day and age where we have that information, the closest I can get is some of you have chickens and goats and puppy dogs and cats. You understand all that stuff. And we're not agrarian anymore, but we want to be close to that. So we do that. I do. Ready? Okay. So here's the deal. A life untended lacks wisdom. That's what I want to talk about. There's 3 wisdom killers in 3 verses that I'm going to give you. I'm going to read the verse and then tell you what the wisdom killer is, okay? Because I want you to be just a little bit confused and then, I get it. I want to see the light bulbs go off, okay? So, wisdom killer number 1, Proverbs 14:4. I put all the verses there so you don't have to do that. I put some blanks in there so I somewhat engage you and wake you up, and you write those things down. You don't have to turn to these verses, but pastors really like it when they hear the rustling of pages out there. It's like waking up in the morning and smelling bacon. Yeah. Rustling of pages. Yeah. Ooh. Nice. Here's the verse. First verse. Here's the wisdom. This is one of the major wisdom killers. Where there are no oxen, the manger is empty. But from the strength of an ox comes abundant harvest. Right? Oh, yes. Okay. Every farmer knows. Every rancher that is worth beans knows this. That the power of the farm is in the oxen. So if you tend to where the oxen are, it will be empty. You'll have, when you wear out your ox, you'll have baby oxes. And they'll grow up and you'll have all this. So if you're paying attention to the ox, then you have the power. Every farmer knows that, except the farmer who is in denial and knows nothing about what he's trying to do. Major wisdom killer is denial. Denial strikes the unknowing victim that doesn't want to know. Don't confuse me with the facts. Pastor Jeff, I don't want to know that. Okay, so if you're married, this will help you. Or this will confirm your suspicions. So, yeah, heaven forbid. So, here we are. So, I'm sitting there and I'm talking. Sometimes if it's really good, I'm talking to 2. Sometimes if it's not so good, I'm just talking to 1 person. When I'm talking to 1 person, invariably, I hear this. I just didn't think they would do that. I'm thinking, gosh, I figured them for that all along. I wonder where you've been. I mean, I'm not mean-spirited or anything. I just figured it out. I was on some committees with them or whatever. And I got that figured out. It doesn't change the way I think about them. I have to have a compassionate, loving heart. But you see, when that person was in denial about the person they were marrying, it's because they were busy trying to get married. They weren't picking up information. They weren't really wanting, don't confuse me with the facts. This is going really good right now. We're approaching what we want. It's very easy to get ourselves into a place of denial and not know what's going on. Number 2, Proverbs 20:4. I love Solomon's usage, and somehow we didn't lose this word in Proverbs. I love it. A sluggard. Isn't that great? A sluggard does not plow in season, so at harvest time he looks but finds nothing. Again, every farmer and rancher that knows their beans about anything knows when to put the little seeds into the ground. If you don't know that, I don't know where you got your farmer t-shirt or your cowboy hat or whatever it is, but if you don't know that, then you're going to farm according to your schedule. This is exactly what someone does when they procrastinate. The second killer to wisdom is procrastination. You're going to be tested on this at the end of the service. You see, procrastination is always convenient, but it is never fruitful. You see, the farmer that doesn't know when to put the seeds in the ground, by the way, procrastinators always know better than everyone else. They're swimming up against the stream, and they're doing all that, but they walk out onto the porch to get some of those nice, big, fat tomatoes, and there ain't any. Well, did you plant them, honey? No, that's besides the fact. What you do there? Procrastination. Then, someone says to me, well, yeah, Pastor, I'm going to do that when there's always going to be a convenient time. That procrastination is always convenience. It's convenient-based. And then they get into trouble, and so they contemplate quitting, and God is unfair, and the church is unkind, and all kinds of other things start to just bubble up out of the mass. But you procrastinated. Now we're back to denial, aren't we? See how these things work? They're all kind of lumped in there together. Number 3, the last one of these. He who sows wickedness reaps trouble, and the rod of his fury will be destroyed. Every farmer or rancher that knows their stuff, they know what is on the seed packet. It says carrots, long green things, little seeds like pepper, carrots. They know what is in the seed packet. Everyone except the pessimist. There's not carrot seeds. Someone's ripping me off. I'm sure that they were cucumbers in there. Those, and on, the pessimist posing as a realist spouts negativity everywhere he or she goes, and then wonders why goodness, truth, beauty, and grace always elude them. They have such an eye for the misplaced cucumber seeds in the carrots. It's not even true. But they can never see any of the goodness of God because they're too busy posing as those who have some kind of common sense. Pessimism, the third, denial, procrastination, pessimism always masquerades as some kind of truth, but it leads to a dead end. I worked with a man for years, and listened to his sad story every time, and did all that I could to encourage some kind of positive, forward-looking situation. And about the time I was trapped deeply in this relationship, it really felt like I should be doing something else. The person says this, and strangely enough, I said the right thing. He says, I don't think you can help me. Sat there. Oh man, I wanted to say, oh yeah, I can. I said, I think you're right. I can't help you. Jaw drop. I wanted you to keep trying so I could keep being obnoxious and I could have this somewhat relationship with you. I wanted to hand you my end of the rope and jump off the bridge. Holding them up. Climb up the rope. No, send food down. How many of these kinds of relationships do we get ourselves into? Yeah. Hugely dysfunctional. Cut her loose. 3 major wisdom killers are denial, procrastination, pessimism. These are the things that tending requires. Proverbs 24. Finish your outdoor work and get your fields ready. After that, build your house. Wow, isn't that cool? A farmer knows that it's first things first, not fun things first. First things first. He says, you go get the fields to where they're producing. You see? Don't you get it? We could go build the house and then we go all live there and starve in it. No, you live under a tree, you crawl under a rock till your property is producing something that you can live in, and then when you get some money for your crops and your kids are well fed, build you a house. Well, I didn't want to do it that way. It's the only way it's done. You see, tending requires receptivity and honesty. You make yourself receptive, you are ready, and you are honest. Begin your day. You've heard me say this before. Some say, no, I do my devotions at night. I hope you sleep well. I hope it helps you sleep. I need to talk to God first thing in the morning or I'm a mess the rest of the day. You see, are you receptive? Are you ready? Is God? When do you call upon God? At what point in the day? And that's what he's talking about here. Receptivity and honesty. Proverbs 27:18. He who tends the fig tree eats the fruit, and he who looks after his master is honored. You see, in farming and ranching, it takes time. You're in it for the long haul, the long term. In fact, you're going to fail and you're going to persevere. In fact, there's no need for perseverance if you're not out there failing a whole bunch. We're supposed to fail so that we can hang on to God and persevere and let God do that work in us. So the IBM executive comes to his boss with the letter in his hand that says, I just lost the company $10 million, slides it across the desk to his boss and says, I'm done. I resign. The boss goes, what? That's it? I've caused too much trouble, heartache. The boss says, we have just spent $10 million on your education. You're not quitting no way, no how. What are we talking about? That's God. That's God. That's God, your boss. Your resignation letter is worthless to God. It's all about education. It's all about your being his beloved son and daughter, his servants in the world. No one can do what God is asking you to do in this world. Wow, I love that. Look at Proverbs, and so it's awareness and focus, receptivity and honesty, obedience and patience, awareness and focus. See, aware of what's going on. It's a temptation to quit. He who works, Proverbs 28, he who works the land will have abundant food, but the one who chases his fantasy will have his fill of poverty. It's tempting, isn't it? And now I'm at awareness and focus. Sorry. It's tempting, isn't it, to look at what isn't instead of what is, and to take that. And so we're so focused on what is not that we think we lose what is. So it takes awareness and focus to keep us in the right place. It takes obedience and patience to run the race, failing and persevering. It takes receptivity and honesty to be where we need to be. So they did a study in the 1960s, and they pulled kids aside and they put them into a room. This isn't one of those horrible studies. This is actually kind of a great study. Produced a lot. And it's 5 through 7-year-old boys and girls, and they walked into the room with a plate, and they said, "Here's your cookie." Whoa, great. And then as he was leaving, he said, "You know, if you don't touch that cookie, I'm going to be back in about 5 minutes, and I'll bring 2 more cookies." 5 and 7-year-olds. You know what Jeffy did? Fortunately, you can relearn some things at a later age. It's great if you learn it then. I didn't. I came to wisdom because I was desperate. All those years later, they went back and they checked the 2 groups. Who got the SAT scores? Who got the jobs? Who was successful in marriage? The person who waited for 3 cookies. I didn't wait for 3 cookies. God's great. He teaches some of us later on in life. But it's so true. The last one. Be sure you know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds. Fellowship and love. It's all about relationship. It's all about King Saul relating to God, not getting stuff from God. If you read Genesis to Revelation and you look at all of the masters of the faith, male and female, you'll find one thread goes through all of them, and that is they grew in a relationship with God. Some of them accomplished the mission that was set before them. Some of them failed tremendously. Some of them accomplished it, then failed, but they all grew in relationship. It's all about knowing, intimacy with your flocks, intimacy with what you have. This is the segue part into the New Testament. The Gospel according to John chapter 10. The sheep listen to his voice. Talking about Jesus. John is. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus said, "I am that shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I lay down my life for you. I give it all away for you, so you get it all." Wow, that's amazing. We end where we began. What do you really want? What does God really want for you? We can develop a mystifying culture of excuse and complaint. I think if you're trying to write notes, and excuse the culture of complaint. Yeah, do I want an excuse, a culture? Sometimes I don't even know what I got. Okay. Or do we want something else? Okay, this is where it gets uncomfortable. All right, so outside of the fact that we're running a little bit late. Just a little bit. I'm not trying to be PC here, politically correct. I'm trying to be CC, which is compassionately conviction. Okay? So there's 3 reasons why you are or you aren't going to respond, why you will not respond to this sermon, should you choose. There's 3 reasons. The first is fear. You see, what I'm going to ask you to do in just a few moments is put your life in the hands of God. That's fearful because, you know, now it's about God. And if you put your hands in God's life, God could do all kinds of things. Christian brothers and sisters in Mosul, they're running for it today. Where's their God? Their God has counted that every hair on their head and loves them tremendously and has died for their sins and is leading them in a life that only gives him glory. Easy for me to say, but it's the truth. It's scary. Put it in your hands. Put your life in the hands of God. I'm still going to ask you. Okay? Number 2, ignorance. Some of us will choose not to follow God today because we're ignorant. Why should I work on a problem that is someone else's problem? Why should I be working on this thing when it's those people over there or that thing? And I'll tell you why. Because it bothers you. It pushes your buttons. That's how you know those people. That's how you know those things. It's not just about them. It's about how those people are on your nerves, and if they would just get their lives together, why do I have to go to work? Because we're somehow attached to the problems of others. And it isn't going to be, you're a total victim.